Well, welcome back to Radio Nerd America. As always, I am Michael here with
Alan.
And this episode is our 2017 Year in Geek Review. We have opinions. Alan, what do you think?
Well, I think it was a good year. We're going to get into that in detail here in the next few minutes. Just like last year, we're going to have our Year in Review show here, a little bit of a best of. And then also, probably the next week or so, we're going to have our Looking Forward episode as well for 2018. So lots of new stuff on the horizon.
Yep, 2017, well, every year is pretty much a good geek year. There's always something good geeky that came out. So we, of course, have our opinions, our strong opinions. We're going to be a little movie heavy because that's mostly what we do. But we're going to be covering TV and books, comic books as well. Maybe touch on an anime or two. Instead of having an intro, let's just dive right into it. I think we're going to talk about both of our top 5 movies for 2017.
Yeah, and I don't have mine rated 1 to 5 necessarily. I just picked the 5 that I think stuck with me the most.
Really? I've got mine in order.
Okay. I mean, I may be able to put them in an order in some way, shape, or form here. Go ahead, you start off then with your number 5.
My number 5 was Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Ooh, you know what? I guess I didn't realize that was this year. That was a good one, for sure.
Yeah, this summer. I won't get into it too much. I enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy 1. Not quite as much as the general public seemed to like. And I will not make a plug for my favorite movie that year. Because I seem to do that every time I mention it, so I won't say it. But I really thoroughly enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy 2, probably because I really didn't pay attention to much of it when it was coming out. I mean, I saw the trailers and stuff, but I wasn't expecting much. So I think my expectations were lowered, and it was just a fun film.
Yeah, it was a good one. That one will make an appearance in my list. I'll mention it later. My number 5 was one that we mentioned in our midway of the year show, which is Kong Skull Island. Really, to me, in the most official way, kicking off the shared universe between Godzilla and King Kong. We talked about it at the other show that I just thought it was very entertaining, great popcorn action flick. Just got me excited for the franchise going forward in the future.
I'm going to agree with you 100%. I will mention that one later. I don't have it listed in my top 5, but I agree with you in that it was just fun. It was crazy, over the top, but not too over the top. I mean, you had John Goodman and John C. Reilly just basically chewing up scenery whenever they showed up.
Yeah.
It was fun. And just like you said, it's a popcorn film. Don't go into it expecting great cinema.
Yeah.
But I wasn't disappointed the entire time.
No, exactly. Same here. So moving up, number 4 for you.
Wonder Woman.
Well, the hard part for me and why I'm a little bit ashamed of this list is because I have not yet seen Wonder Woman, and I know that it should probably be in the top 5. I've just, because it's DC, I guess, I've been reluctant, kind of waiting. Is it on Blu-ray yet?
It is.
Okay, I'm going to have to go out and check it out then.
I'm not going to say much more than I said when we initially talked about the film, other than it is far and above, in my opinion, the best DC universe, cinematic universe film that's come out yet. That said, I have to admit I haven't seen a lot other than Man of Steel. I've started Batman versus Superman.
Oh, finally started.
I have started it, and I got bored right away, and I'm like, I'll get to this later.
Yeah.
But Wonder Woman held my attention. It's basically, I don't want to say it's. I was going to say something almost on a derivative, and that would be bad. It's similar in many regards to Captain America: The First Avenger.
Yeah.
And that it's a throwback.
Right.
He was World War II. She's World War I. But she's her own character. It's a great film. I loved it, but it didn't rate as high as some others for me. Maybe that's because, well, I won't get too far into it, but I don't want to get into a huge discussion about representation and whatnot. I will just say this, that Shaylee, she cried during it.
Yeah.
Because for her, this was her hero. This was her Batman. This was her Superman. So it really touched her in a place that I have to admit, I have to take for granted, because I've always had male awesome superheroes. So that said, Wonder Woman was fantastic.
Okay, go into my number 4. One that I'm sure is going to be on your list is Logan.
That's my number 3. So yeah, let's talk about that.
So the thing with Logan, I mean, I almost want to go into why I didn't rank it higher, which would make it negative, which I actually don't want to do. So, but it was a great Wolverine movie. I think we're kind of not 100% sure if it's the last we see of Hugh Jackman in this role.
He's been pretty definitive that this is it.
Yeah, so it's a good swan song for him. It kind of had like an on-the-road appeal about it, a road trip movie of sorts with him.
Yep.
It kind of launched the new kids as young characters as a jumping-off point. Great violent scenes in it. You know, we got X-23.
Yes.
So lots to love there.
I agree with you again, 100%. It was the only... You know me, I have to go negative. But my negative is actually kind of a weird positive. It sucks that this was by far the best Wolverine movie yet. Standalone. I mean, he was good in the X-Men.
Yeah, I mean, the Wolverine standalone movies have always been pretty good, right? So I feel like every time But I feel like as they come out, we're like, oh, that was good. And then the next one comes out and it's better. Then Logan comes out and it's like, well, that was the best one.
Did you really think X-Men Origins Wolverine was good?
I'm trying to remember it because I don't watch a lot of those multiple times, but...
That's one where they put Deadpool and then zipped his mouth shut?
Oh, yeah. Well, until Deadpool's appearance. Until that, maybe it was better. But yeah, go ahead on Logan.
It was great. Wolverine has claws. When he attacks someone, there's going to be lots of blood, and there's going to be limbs that come off.
Yeah.
That's what blades do. And they've hidden that very well in all the X-Men movies and all the Wolverine movies. I mean, he stabs people.
Oh, that's true. This was an R rating, wasn't it?
This was an R rating. This was they saw that they could go hard R. Well, not hard R, but they saw they could go R with Deadpool.
Yeah.
And decided, let's go for this. And it was perfect. It wasn't R for the sake of being R. They finally told the story.
Yeah, they just did. Yeah, they didn't cut any corners.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Like I said, his weapons, he's not shooting you with concussive blasts like Cyclops, right?
Yeah.
Where people can just get pushed out of the way. He has claws. They're going to hurt people. They're going to cut people. So to finally see that on screen and have a good representation of what Wolverine was, this is exactly as you said. This was Hugh Jackman's swan song, and the reason I'm upset is just because I want more. It was that good, but we're not going to get more.
Right, exactly. If that's your 3, then it comes back to me for 3, which I quickly edited and popped in Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Okay.
Because I had forgot about it when you mentioned it. So this touches on a little bit of why Logan wasn't ranked higher, was just because the Marvel movies have that momentum behind them. That
Agreed.
As a standalone movie, it may not be better, but my hype coming into it is higher. My hype going out of it is higher because I know, again, as I mentioned, it's equity into a larger story. So, but I echo everything you said. The comedy in the movie, the music in the movie, some new character introductions in the movie. It just was a nice addition to the Marvel franchise.
I agree. I've already said my piece, but I don't have a problem with you putting it number 3.
Okay, so you're number 2?
My number 2 is actually an anime film, Your Name, which if you get an opportunity to see it, I highly suggest it. I don't want to ruin the ending in any way, shape, or form, but basically it's kind of like it's a boy meets girl where they keep sharing each other's bodies. And I mean, I know it sounds kind of hokey, but it was enthralling. Even reading it in subtitles, because I watched it unsubbed, it was engrossing. I was fully immersed in the film, and it's emotionally powerful. I mean, it's hard to say much more about the film other than that, but it was fantastic.
So I have Your Name as an honorable mention.
Okay.
Because I did eventually see it a little while after you had saw it, and I definitely enjoyed it. It was really good. I just didn't have it in my top 5. I was a little bit let down by the ending, maybe. I think I was expecting, because of all that I've heard of everybody, how much they loved it, I think I was expecting more of a twist ending or more of a shocking ending or more, so I don't have anything bad to say about it. I'm just keeping it out of my top 5 of the year, but it was a really good one. I'd recommend anybody check it out.
I'm not going to ruin the ending, but I have to admit, it probably goes where you think it's going to go, but what I liked about the ending was that it didn't get there right away.
Right.
It kept teasing. Is it really going to end like how you want it to end?
Yeah, I think that's why. Yeah, it got pretty suspenseful. It was a great flick for sure. I recommend it highly. Honorable mention from me. Number 2 for me is, and I hope that I'm not being putting more weight on the movies that are more recent here, but I have to go Thor Ragnarok for number 2.
Really? That's a high ranking.
Well, I don't know. I just had a lot of fun during it, and like I said, it just really carried and built momentum going into Black Panther and Avengers, and so I'm getting outside of just the movie itself with that comment, but it just got me excited, and I was excited to go watch it. I mean, more so than some of these other ones on the list, so I'm trying to give it credit for that.
I push you on that, but that's my number one. So I don't disagree. I'm messing with you a little bit. I loved it. Just as you said, it was great in that, the humor, as good as the humor was in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Thor Ragnarok took it to the next level. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
There are still scenes I quote. In fact, I want to see it again, just to see the funny bits again. But not just that, the action was awesome.
Yep.
And it did slightly push forward the overall arching story that's going to lead us to, ultimately, the Avengers Infinity War.
Uh-huh. A great villain in it.
Yes, the villain was, Kate Blanchett shows up, and what? I don't know. Is it too late? I don't want to spoil anything, so.
No, I think you're okay with this one. It's been long enough.
So, it's his sister? Didn't see that coming. But it fit.
And they kind of solve the problem of right away they make her look like she's just undefeatable, like all powerful. Like, well, what's going to happen now? She just breaks his hammer, and but I think they did a good job of making her seem defeatable, and the way they defeated her in the end was pretty clever. So.
Oh yeah, and I have to admit, anytime Loki shows up in a film, I'm happy. You gotta love Loki, and I love that. Sometimes he's a bad guy, sometimes he's not. He plays, Tom Hiddleston plays Loki perfectly. He is the god of mischief. So you never know where he's coming from, what angle he's working.
Yeah, you always have to keep that in the back of your head, like, okay, is there a Loki double cross coming here or not?
Exactly.
So that keeps you guessing in that franchise. For me, number one, it was hard. And it's recent, but
you're going to do it, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't know how I could not put Star Wars The Last Jedi as number one. And again, it's like, if I look at the list, and we're talking mainly and mostly sort of fun factor and enjoyment on this list. I don't think, usually in this genre that we're talking about, we don't get the best written and acted movies all the time. So I'm not trying to look solely at that, but just the amount that I looked forward to Star Wars, and even the amount that I love Star Wars, it's almost a default for me, because the things that I like in Star Wars, even if they were equal as in another movie, I'm going to like them more because it's Star Wars. So it kind of has to default to number one for me if it doesn't absolutely fall on its face, which it didn't. So that's where it's at.
Well, see, we're not going to get too much into Star Wars. We spent over an hour talking about it last time. But, see, I resisted that in that. Yeah, normally I think I'd say, well, it's Star Wars, so therefore it automatically jumps ahead of the line for many films. But this time I couldn't do it, man. I couldn't. As funny as it sounds, this is the first one out of these new ones. I haven't seen it in the theater more than once yet.
Yeah, I've only seen it once as well, but part of it is just because of the time and all that. But I do intend to go see it again. And I think because it's recent as well, I almost don't want to punish it because it's recent, because the emotions are tight in my head, that I haven't seen it a second time. I'm almost giving it the benefit of the doubt that, just like episode 7, after a couple months and 6 months looking back, I'm going to remember all the great stuff, and the sort of stuff I didn't care about is going to fade away, or I'll feel better about it with the next episode. So I'm definitely giving it some benefit of the doubt here.
You're a brave man to make that number one, in my opinion. Sorry,
Well, I couldn't. It was hard when I looked at the list. I'm like, did I really enjoy Thor more than Star Wars? I didn't. So I
did. I did enjoy Thor way more than Star Wars. You had some honorable mentions?
So Your Name was an honorable mention. And then sneaking in at the end of the year here, I have The Shape of Water as an honorable mention.
Oh, you saw that?
Yeah. So, that one had been on my radar. I can't say I'm a big fan of all his movies, but in general, I'm a big fan of Guillermo del Toro.
Even if you don't love his movies, they're fun to look at.
Yeah.
He has an eye. I don't know if it's art or what you want to call it, but he's got a distinct style that even, like, what was the other movie he did? Oh, the one that took place in Spain.
So, yeah, he did Pan's Labyrinth.
That one.
And then also Hellboy, he did the first couple of Hellboys.
Yeah.
So his creative and art direction, the guy, whoever he works with on those movies, does a great job, and it's sort of his look, right? It's just different from other.
Because I didn't love Pan's Labyrinth, but it's so awesome to look at.
So interestingly enough, one of my comments here was going to be, it's an honorable mention, but it didn't go in my top 5 because it's no Pan's Labyrinth. Pan's Labyrinth is one of my, top 10 favorite sci-fi geek movies of the past decade.
Really?
I would say.
Really?
I don't know. If you have only watched it once, maybe I would say go back and rewatch it. But maybe that's a discussion for another time. But there's a lot of elements of this movie that reminded me of Pan's Labyrinth, but just a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more, I guess streamlined is what I want to say. I don't want to say anything negative, but it was just more to the point, more simplified, and in some ways that may have made it stronger as a movie. But I did enjoy it. It was kind of a twist on an existing story, an existing sort of trope, but the way that he played it out and showed it visually and the setting and all that made it lots of fun and very interesting.
God, I'm jealous. I haven't seen that, and now I really want to see it. Put it up. I mean, I know you only mentioned it as an honorable mention because so I have honorable mentions as well. I got 3 of them that are kind of equal to each other, and those 3, the aforementioned Kong Skull Island.
Yep,
I enjoyed it, but on the same level, I think I enjoyed Spider-Man: Homecoming.
That was another good one. I guess it could be honorable mention just because of it's Spider-Man.
Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's the best. It's better than the last 2 amazing Spider-Man Sony did.
Yeah, and when we talked about it when it actually came out, I remember we discussed, at least for me, I was like, I had some Spider-Man fatigue. It just doesn't have the same impact to me anymore because there's been so many of them and they've sort of reset it so many times. So that was affecting that one for me.
And then also Star Wars: The Last Jedi. It's right there too. That we're looking
after you basically said that it's terrible, then at least you give it honorable mention. I'll give you that. Okay, good.
I mean, it was no Alien Covenant, which is
was that this year?
That was this year.
Yeah. Did we actually? We never got around to talking about that, did we? After you saw it,
we don't need to. We don't need to.
Well, you know what? Let's segue into. I was going to make a really quick note here of biggest disappointment.
I was going to suggest that too.
So, I mean, I don't want to waste time on it, but maybe the one you just mentioned we do need to delve into a little bit. But for me, it's Justice League, and I haven't even seen it. But I'm just calling it biggest disappointment.
I'd want to say, I think we know it's well established. The Alien franchise used to be one of my favorite franchises. I can't say it is anymore. I'm sorry.
The old Alien movies still are your favorites, but as a franchise, you can't put it at the top anymore.
I can't. I just can't. I'm sorry. Alien and Aliens are 2 of the finest movies ever put to film. And then it's just diminishing returns after that. And Alien Covenant, I don't know. After Prometheus, I had high hopes. Actually, you know what? That's a lie. I'm lying 100%. After Prometheus, I was like, Ridley Scott, stop making Alien
movies.
Well,
you were like that. But I think you and other people had hope that, because of so much backlash from Prometheus and all the input, that I think people thought that this next one, they were going to take that input and make sure it became better again.
Yeah, and it was better than Prometheus. I mean, don't get me wrong. Prometheus is a beautiful, beautiful dumpster fire of a movie. This one wasn't quite the dumpster fire, but spoiler alert, the fact that we learn that the xenomorphs come from an android that hates humans does not make it more interesting. I mean, I don't even
remember that point in the movie because I only saw it once and it was a while ago when it first came out. But let me ask you this. When I first talked about it, and you hadn't seen it yet, so we didn't talk about a lot of the plot or anything, I had made the comment that I just felt that Ridley Scott was onto something really cool with these 2 films, Prometheus and this one, and that where they fall short, actually, is where he has to bring the xenomorphs into the film. Like, where he has to try to explain things with the xenomorphs. I just felt like if this was a different franchise and a different series and you replaced the xenomorphs with some other creature, I think everybody would like it more. And I'm not too tied to the historical Alien movies. They're cool, but they didn't come out at the right time, and I was too young for it, so they don't hold that special place in my heart to where these don't offend me like they do you. But I understand that.
They do offend me. I don't know. I'd like to try and pull myself out of it for a minute and say, If this was really the first one, like if this was the first Alien movie, would I have enjoyed it? Maybe. I don't know. And maybe it is, tainted or altered or affected by the fact that it's not, and that the first one is Alien, the second one is Aliens. So I have expectations going into it. I just, I don't know.
So for me, this is spoiler alert, but so David, right?
Yep.
I mean, his turn at the end of that movie was, to me, a great turn, right? Because you just thought, sure, you know what I mean? So that's where I think, looking back, I remember some really cool moments.
Oh,
and I just completely gloss over the
Michael Fassbender is fantastic as David. And when you look at it instead as a movie where you've got an android that hates people and wants to destroy human race, it's not bad. Shouldn't be an Alien movie.
Yeah. I mean, I can't disagree with that, but it was a fun movie. So are you calling that one out as your biggest disappointment over Justice League?
Okay, I haven't seen Justice League like you.
So it's on a level that Justice League is so bad that neither of us are going to see it.
I will see it at some point. Just like I will finally at some point finish Batman vs. Superman. I will do it. I can't call Alien Covenant my biggest disappointment because I knew it was going to be crap.
Yeah. My
biggest disappointment was The Last Jedi.
So it's honorable mention and biggest disappointment.
Well, I didn't know we were officially going to do a biggest disappointment. I mean, that doesn't mean I didn't like the movie. I liked it, but it wasn't what I wanted. Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's where
discussions online.
Yeah, when we talked with Joe, I think that's where the more and more I've opened up to it, just because it's like, well, the reason why I didn't like it is because it isn't what I want. But then it's like,
that's why at this point I think I need to see it a second time, and I will. But as of right now, my gut says it's the biggest disappointment for me.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. If it's a very controversial movie, and any movie that has that much hype and people committed to it is going to have strong feelings one way or another.
Now, I just want to throw out there, those are just the movies we've seen, or in the case of Justice League, haven't seen. A couple other movies that maybe we missed and should have rated higher had we seen them. I know I haven't seen Lego Batman.
I haven't seen it either, but I heard a lot of good things.
That's why I didn't throw it in there. I also haven't seen Blade Runner 2049.
I haven't seen it either. That was one that I was never a huge original Blade Runner fan. I respected it, but I'm just waiting. I'll probably see it pretty soon here.
Exactly. So we didn't cut those out, not because we didn't enjoy them. We just haven't seen them.
Right. There's only so much time. Okay, so does that cover off the movie side of the discussion?
It does.
Okay, so let's go into TV, and this is going to be network TV, Hulu, Netflix, any sort of streaming service, any of that kind of stuff. So we don't really have rankings here. We're just going to talk about the stuff we like the most because it's hard to compare some of this stuff.
I might have some negative things to say too, because that's me.
Okay, so let me just throw out one that we talked about it before, so I want to get it out there, and we'll move on. Was on Netflix. I loved the Castlevania animated series from this year.
I still haven't seen it.
It was only 4 episodes. I'm waiting. Hopefully soon we get more of it because it was really just an intro or even a prologue of sorts. But it was well done. Animation, story, all that was great, I thought.
I like I said, I haven't seen it yet, so that's something I need to rectify. So I apologize for that. Okay,
so what's another one that you liked?
I'm just going to throw a shout out to Black Mirror. Even though the series came out with the 28th, 29th, season 4 came out, so I haven't watched all of them yet. But right away, already a standout from the season is the very first episode.
Well, hold on now.
What?
Let me clarify. Did season 3 come out in 2018 or 2017?
I want to say it came out last year.
Because that's what I was just trying to figure out, because I thought the same thing. I saw the first episode of season 4, and it was really good. We talked about it briefly, but I wasn't sure, are we counting that as this year? Because it came out 2 days before, but then if there wasn't anything else from Black Mirror this year, then I guess we would have to. I have not seen the first few seasons. You have touched on a couple episodes. This episode 1 of season 4 was the first one I've seen.
So the third season came out October 21st of 2016. So late in 2016.
So 2017 almost was a dead year for the...
Correct, because this one didn't come out till the end of December, which, like I said, I haven't gone through all of them, but like I said, standout for me is the first episode, USS Callister. Loved it.
Yeah, that one was great. I'm almost worried now that because I've seen that one, if I watch other ones, am I going to be disappointed because they maybe not have such... I mean,
Was the first Black Mirror episode ever seen, and you liked it?
Yeah, but I liked it because it was such a like Star Wars, Star Trek, complete, Serenity.
I will say this. So the first 2 seasons were straight BBC, or I should say British produced shows.
Yeah.
So the budgets were not as large as they are now.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. That first episode, USS Callister of season 4, it was pretty budget heavy. I mean, there were some awesome special effects.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it looked like it could have been an episode of Star Trek or something similar.
I mean, it was better effects than a DC movie.
Oh, that was a good dig. But I will warn you, the first 2 seasons are very short. They're each 3 episodes. There's also a Christmas special. So 7 episodes, you're caught up with the British ones. It was season 3 that they got picked up by Netflix, and there's more. There's still British actors, but you'll see more American actors. But you'll see higher production values.
Yeah. But you're going out and saying, as what you've seen from the new season 4, you're putting that as one of your best shows of the season.
Well, I haven't watched. There's only a handful of episodes, and I think I've only watched 2 or 3. But it's already a highlight for me. It was hyped. The first episode lived up to the hype. Second episode, Archangel, good. I'm not going to ruin anything with it. I just didn't enjoy it as much as the first.
Yeah.
Still good, but it's Black Mirror, so it's a strong show. I'm looking forward to watching the rest. So very happy with Black Mirror coming back. What else do you have?
So one that I know we both felt good about was Stranger Things 2. Again, we won't talk too much about it because we already discussed it in a previous episode, so you guys can go back to that one if you want to hear more about it. But I called it Electric Boogaloo because it was like kind of a rehash of the first one. Still enjoyable.
Yes, I enjoyed it. I mean,
yeah, still completely enjoyable. I don't want to say too many negative things, but it's kind of more of what you liked from the first one. So
yeah, I want to say we tore through it in just over a day. It was enjoyable, but like you said, it is Electric Boogaloo. It is. It's more what you saw in the first, but with more money. So the special effects are a bit better. But it to me also kind of felt like it was the Age of Ultron of TV shows, and that it felt a lot of Stranger Things 2 was just pushing the story forward just enough to get to the next season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very curious to see where they go with the next seasons after this, because eventually they can't keep going back to the well like they did for season 2.
Right.
So I'm curious to see where
we're
they go.
going back to the will. Get it?
Will, yeah. Oh, so for me, what I thought was the best Marvel series on Netflix thus far, or all of television, I guess you could say, non-movie, is The Punisher. That came out, October or so? September, October. I watched the whole season. I thought it was phenomenal. I think the fact that they didn't have to deal with a superpower in this one basically at all allowed them to focus on, character and story. I'm
only halfway through it, but I have to agree with you. Up until this, my favorite was the Luke Cage series, which I absolutely I became enthralled with. This one too, but it's I don't want to say it's a slow burn, but I have a bit more invested simply because the Punisher has been one of my favorite characters since the early mid-'80s, I want to say. But I will say this, I appreciate the depth and the character that they're giving Frank Castle, because I have mentioned this before, so I won't go too far, but basically it's easy to make the Punisher a one-note caricature. Yeah. Just a guy with guns that kills bad guys.
Yeah, it's definitely not that.
It's not. They go deep and they give him a reason. They make him a person, and that's what I love about it. I mean, yes, it ramps up. You know the violence is coming. You've seen the whole thing. I've already seen some of it. I know there's going to be more guns. I know there's going to be a lot more death. But that's not the appeal for me. I just love what they've done to Frank Castle.
I mean, there's a ton of action, a ton of, like you said, violence and killing in it. But I would say it's one of those series, unlike the other Netflix Marvel from the Defenders and all that. This one, you could take somebody who's not even in the comics at all, but just maybe likes action movies or like sort of suspense type stuff. And as long as they're okay with the killing, I think they would thoroughly enjoy the series, not even knowing anything about Marvel comics.
I agree. This is one of the most grounded of the Marvel series.
Yeah.
Because no special powers, like you said. It's a man with a vendetta. I love him. But it's still connected. I mean, I love Karen Page.
Yep, so they tied her in, too, because it was like, man, is this even connected to the other series? And it's really only through her that it's connected.
And I haven't seen all of it, like I said. But I really like the dynamic between Karen Paige and Frank Castle. I don't know if it's romantic.
Right, you're not sure quite where it's going to go. Or if it's almost a big brother, little sister kind of thing. You're not sure what...
Why? I don't know what it is, but it's definitely a very intimate connection. But how it is, I don't know. I love that I don't know.
Yeah, and I like the guy, I should have, looked it up beforehand, but the guy that's Frank Castle's counterpart in the series, the kind of computer hacker guy.
Micro.
Yeah, and he played Desi in the HBO series Girls, Desi, which was a very funny character that he played. So when I first saw him in this series, I was like, oh, it's him, the guy from Girls. But throughout the series, I thought he did a really great job, and I saw him as this character and not the character from his other show. So I really liked him in the series as well.
Nice. Yeah, he's good. I like him.
Okay, so another one we did, Black Mirror, Stranger Things. You want to talk about Runaways?
I did. I've been watching it on Hulu. It comes out every Tuesday. I think they threw the first 3 episodes up when it first came out for people to binge through. And then every Tuesday a new episode comes out. The comic book is one of my favorite comics of all time. The basic gist for, if you want to know about the comic or the show, is you've got this group of teenagers who basically find out that their parents are supervillains.
Yeah, because you had talked about this a couple episodes ago, because I was confused of whether it was Marvel or X-Men or what it was.
It's definitely Marvel, and there is a mutant on the show. I don't think they can call her that because Fox owns the rights to mutants.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically the parents are supervillains and they're doing something evil. The kids find out about it. And then you find out some of the kids have powers, or they discover they have powers, or if they're not powers, they're tech geniuses, or they have something their parents put aside for them to use. And it's very teenage type show. It's from the guy that did the OC, Josh Schwartz, I think is his name. So it's very... I will say this, the soundtrack is fantastic. I found some excellent music from the show. Unfortunately, the show is not as good as the comic was, but I'm not cutting it loose. I'm enjoying it right now. I wanted more, but I'm enjoying it.
Okay, and then at least the last one I have on the list here is Rick and Morty. So I know you had mentioned it in a show in the past. I had never watched Rick and Morty. There was just only so many sort of Cartoon Network Adult Swim series I could commit to. But this season, I was like, well, let me check a couple out. And I think it was the initial pilot of season 4. Was that the Pickle Rick episode?
No, that was like second or third episode.
Oh, okay. Well, that was the first one I saw, and I loved the Pickle Rick episode. So then,
Pickle Rick.
A few ones after that, I wasn't watching them in sequence. I was seeing a bunch of episodes all over the place after that. So some of them were kind of crazy, but it took me a while to get how the show works, and what the background is to the show. And once I understood that, then I was much, much more into the show. But yeah, Pickle Rick was a great one for me.
Now, have you gone back and watched seasons 1 and 2 now?
I've watched whatever random ones Cartoon Network throws at midnight on the weekdays.
Right.
So yes, I have seen some of season 1, 2, and whatever, but I don't know which ones were which, right? I'm just watching them basically all out of order at this point.
Gotcha. Well, if you get the chance, you should go back and watch them. Do you have Hulu?
No, not anymore.
Okay. Well, if you ever get it back, it's on Hulu.
Yeah, I think I was watching a few on Hulu there for a minute, but you've watched them all. So do you feel that this newest season is getting better or more of what you already love?
Oh, it's fantastic. I think it's growing. It is getting better, which is impressive because I started with the first episode of season 2.
Yeah.
Which, I say it was just a season ago. Yeah, but you remember season 2 ended and we had to wait 18 months for season 3. So it was, a couple years ago now that I first saw season 2. And then I went back and watched all of season 1 and I was hooked immediately. So... I wasn't there at the beginning, but I came in the middle, and now I'm strong. I love Rick and Morty, so I love it. Is it annoying that it takes so long between seasons? Yeah, but if this is the quality we're going to get, I have to be okay with it, and I am okay with it. Yeah,
I mean, I would say watching some of these episodes, it's like they're not simple. Actually, they're completely overly complicated plots. So some of these are like you're not just going to whip out one of these episodes every 30 days. Like somebody's got to think about these to make them work, you know what I mean? So that it doesn't surprise me that it takes a while for them to come out, right?
Right, this isn't a South Park, and that's not to denigrate South Park at all. But South Park, they try to do the episodes and get them out within a week or two because they want to be timely.
Or
South
even
Park,
Family Guy, right? Family Guy's a lot of quick hits, almost current event social commentary.
Right, because they want to be able to exactly that. They want to hit on the pop moments that have happened and comment on those.
Mm-hmm.
Rick and Morty does that a bit, but it's more broad-based, and it's, I don't know, there's a lot more psychologically going on.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they're really trying to dig in and stretch the limits of, like, science and technology, and because that's Rick's character, right? I mean,
right.
That's what he does. That's what his career is as a mad scientist. And so I think they're really trying to push the envelope and get these really crazy plot twists and storylines in these episodes, which is fun.
Yeah, Rick and Morty was a total highlight for me this year, and I can't wait for more, but unfortunately, we have to wait.
Okay, so does that give us... one that I'll mention that I think it was it all of this year, only half of this year? Star Wars Rebels had some new episodes this year.
Oh, yeah.
I don't currently have a subscription to Disney XD. That's one that I kind of wait for them all to come out, and then I'll subscribe to it and watch all the Star Wars Rebels. But this is the final season. They're halfway through it. The second and final half of the entire series will be in 2018. So that's an honorable mention for 2017, but just not going to comment much because I'm waiting basically for it all to come out to see it all at once. So that takes us out of TV, and the last topic we're going to cover is sort of books or comics, right? Which, there's only so much time for us to do movies and TVs and books and comics, so I think we each only have a couple items here.
Yes, we do have day jobs, so we can't be geeks 100% all the time with our time. We do have to pay the bills.
So go ahead and start off with one of yours.
I know we have these written down, but I'm going to go a little bit out of order only because this one's fresh in my mind. The Collapsing Empire was a book that came out this past year by John Scalzi, who, if you are familiar, he is the author of the Old Man's War series of books. There are 6 books in that series. This is not one of those books. Old Man's War, like I said, is its own 6 books. He might come back to that universe, but this is a new universe. In fact, I thought initially this was a standalone book, but I see now that it's at least the first of possibly 2 or more books. This sub-universe is called the Interdependency. That's all just technical stuff, not very interesting at all. But the reason I like the book, so the whole gist of the Collapsing Empire is it takes place in the future, maybe a millennia or so, and it's all about the human empire. It's got a big, long, fancy name, but basically the gist is they call it the Interdependency. Earth is no longer in the picture. It's an empire where they have not an emperor, not a magistrix, and not a pope, but basically he created a word that kind of encompasses all those called the Emperex, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And basically it set up the entire universe, the human universe is set up where different trade guilds, different religious, the church itself, and the Emperex are the 3 main points of power. I should take that. The Emperex, and also there is a parliament. So there is a representative body, but basically you have 3 big powers, and they run the entire galaxy. And there is no faster than light travel, but yet there is. And the fact that they have found that you can get from point A to point B, not necessarily going fast. They found a thing called they call it the flow. Basically, think of it as wormholes.
Yeah.
And you can jump into the flow, and it can take you anywhere from a few days, a few hours, to several months to get from one end of the galaxy to another.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like, I want to say, kind of like subway schedules.
Yeah.
You get on the flow at one point. When you get on this one point, it'll take you to this other point. Well, I mean, it's called the interdependency because all the other worlds are interdependent on each other. They have to trade. In other words, this world is good with arms. Well, this world makes citrus fruit. This one does this. So that way they all have to trade amongst each other. Well, it's discovered that the flow is changing. Part of these tubes, if you will, are collapsing. And as there is no faster than light travel, if one of these flow paths collapses to a world, there will suddenly
no more oranges.
Exactly. But all these there's 46 different worlds, they're all locked into trade with each other. Well, if suddenly the one that makes all the wheat goes away, there's no wheat.
Yeah.
So it may sound, I've done a very good job of making it sound horrible and boring. But think of it as a not as complex sci-fi version of Game of Thrones. There's royalty involved. Yeah. There's lots of scheming going on, and there's a pretty, I'd say, a good half dozen major characters in the book, and you keep hopping from one to the other.
Yeah. Okay.
Very, very interesting. Let me put it this way: I bought it just before the end of the year, and I read it. For me, it was fast in 2 days. I stayed up late just to finish it. In fact, this is the best book I've read since probably Andy Weir's The Martian.
Yeah.
So I talked way too long. If you get a chance, I highly suggest you read it.
Okay, and then you have this other one, East of West, Volume 7. This is a paperback?
Yep, that one's a comic book. East of West, I won't get too much into it, but basically it's an alternate history of the U.S. where you've got several competing kingdoms, if you will, and they're all basically working to either bring about or avoid the pending apocalypse. Mm-hmm. The 7th volume is the most recent trade to come out. It's very action-packed. It moves the story forward very well and just had me gripped the entire time. So if that's a series that interests you, feel free to drop us a line. I can talk to you more about it. But like I said, the most recent volume is Volume 7, and I loved it. The series is not slowing down.
You know, interesting enough that we're jumping topics and we'll come right back, but that reminded me of something that because we failed to talk about it, I almost feel like we have to admit that it was a disappointment this year, which is The Walking Dead.
Oh my God.
Because I think we both saw the episodes, right?
No.
Did you see any of them this year?
I stopped halfway through last season, and my intention is
last season or the current season?
Last season.
Oh, okay. So I watched all of them from this current season, but yeah, it's okay. It's getting a little long in the tooth is all I can say at this point.
Yeah. I mean, basically all the episodes of 2017 I haven't watched. I may have watched a couple after the mid-season break, so
yeah,
when it came back earlier this year.
And you know what I think we can say about that too is like it's hard now for these, you know, if you're not Game of Thrones, and Walking Dead was on that level for its first 5 or 6 seasons, maybe even, unless you're the must-see TV series, it's hard to sustain that viewership over 5, 6, 7, 8 seasons because there's so many new great series coming out that you just start to forget about the ones as they fall off the radar a little bit. And I think that's what's maybe starting to happen with a lot of people with Walking Dead.
I agree with you 100%. And here's how to help that. You need to announce an end.
Yeah, that would help.
Because we're what now? This is season 7, right? Of Walking Dead?
Yeah. And the comics are still going.
Oh, yeah. So there's tons of story to tell. But it helped Lost. Lost went 6 seasons.
Yeah.
But basically, somewhere around season 3 or so.
I mean, Game of Thrones. I mean, even with the books, but people have been talking about the end since the 2nd season of TV.
Exactly. They know it's coming. So when HBO said, okay, you know, season 8 is going to be our final season.
Yeah.
People are like, all right, they know. So they're invested because they know an end is coming. Same with, like I said, Lost. I think season 3 or 4, they said, you know, give us 2 or 3 more seasons. Here's the end. Here are the stories we want to do. And it helps because people knew, okay, this is it. We have an end coming. Walking Dead, as far as we know, is never going to end.
Yeah, so it kind of becomes a soap opera. Which
exactly.
Then you're kind of like, well, what is it? What am I hanging around for? I can just go away and come back in 5 years and jump back on the wagon.
Which we know it won't because viewership will continue to fall, and eventually they'll have to cancel it for viewership reasons, not for creative reasons.
Yeah.
So I think having an end date, I'm not saying you have to, you know, your first season you have to announce an end date, but any of these zeitgeist must-see shows,
yeah,
once you're about season 3, no later than 4, you probably have to start saying, all right, we have an end, and it's going to be season X.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we had talked about this before in the franchise episode we did, is like, if you do that, and then if you plan to have your spin-off episode come out a year after you kill the first one when it's hot, like, that's, I think, a way you can keep it going better. Whereas they brought out Fear the Walking Dead as they were already waning and kept The Walking Dead going, so it's almost like, and I haven't even watched Fear the Walking Dead this year. I watched the first season, but I'm like, it's just too much, and I'm not getting enough back, right? I'm not getting enough bang back.
Well, then they have to do things like, now they're talking they're going to do a crossover between the two.
Yeah.
Even though they said they were never going to do that.
Well, yeah, I think they realize now they have to, because
they got to spike the ratings, which, you know, Fear the Walking Dead, maybe you watch it, maybe you enjoy it, whoever's listening out there. I watched first episode, said, nope, I haven't watched anything since.
Yeah. So that was a little side tangent there, but coming back to the book stuff, to a well-known and loved franchise for us is the Star Wars realm. So almost all the books now I read are just the Star Wars books. I had talked with Michael that they're releasing 4 or 5 a year. The novels, the novels that are meant for the quote-unquote, grown-up audience. And so those keep me pretty busy, and they're all pretty big books, thick 400 or 500 page novels. So Michael just picked up Thrawn.
Yep, so I'm going to dip a toe. I'm not as committed as Alan. I'm not going to be buying every single one that comes out. Don't get me wrong, I have some interest there, but I'm not a fan, or not that I'm not a fan, let me take that back. I really don't know much about Thrawn. Yeah. I know he exists. I know that he's this chiss, blue-skinned Grand Admiral at some point. I know that he was a huge player in the Thrawn trilogy that Timothy Zahn wrote back in the early 80s, 90s.
Yeah, the old Star Wars universe book.
Which are now legends.
Yep, legends, yeah.
So I figured now is a good time to dip my toe in. Also, it was $2.99 for the ebook, so it was very cheap, and that appeals to me.
And you by mentioning that, you reminded me that one did actually come out this calendar year, and I really had to think hard of was that the best one? It definitely was one of my favorite ones for sure. So that's a great one to start with because it does tie into, it keeps it in the known universe, I'll say. There's definitely ties in that to the original trilogy. There may end up becoming, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, there may be ties to the Star Wars Rebels cartoon series. So that one's very entrenched in the stuff that exists.
Right, because I know he does show up on Rebels, which I do not watch. I know you do.
So I think if you read the book and then if you were to watch Rebels, you'd like it more, and then it ties into the old trilogy. So that's definitely, and it really makes you think too and hope that, okay, well, he's got to come up in a movie later or another animated series because his story just is not nearly finished yet. So somewhere there has to be a finish to his story, as we just talked about. So that's a great one. And I don't know, are you going to actually have time to read it?
I hope so. As soon as I saw it was on sale, I picked it up and thought, I'm going to start reading this right now while I still have a couple days off. But then I also noticed Collapsing Empire was on sale. Started reading that, and I literally could not put it down. Yeah,
and I think, and once you got to the quick synopsis version of what the Collapsing Empire was about, then I was like, okay, now I'm more interested. But as you were explaining the long version of it, I'm just thinking in my head, not that I wouldn't like it, but just that these are all concepts and themes that I'm just getting from the Star Wars books.
Right.
So it's like, it's still the same themes and stuff, but I'm just choosing to, like I mentioned before, put all my equity into the Star Wars instead of finding new stuff. But there was similar kind of things, and that's what you get from some of these Star Wars books. The one that I was going to say was the best Star Wars book of the year, and maybe now I'm saying, well, maybe it is Thrawn, was the Phasma book, just called Phasma. Captain Phasma, her actual name, her native name is just Phasma, so that's why it's the title of the book. It introduces some great new characters. I think the only reason after you had mentioned Thrawn and refresh my memory, the only reason I would say Thrawn is probably a better one is just because of how they've handled Phasma in the movies so far. Oh. That she's, and I don't know, she may come back. I still hold out that she will come back. But
why?
They've just made her kind of a Cliff Notes Boba Fett type character, whereas Thrawn is still very much like he's played a large role in the animated series and the books of the past. I think there's going to be more with Thrawn, which makes me say even to you to like, well, you might want to read that one first because it may pay dividends more down the road than Phasma does.
I look forward to reading it, and it's unfortunate what they did to Phasma. I know you hold out hope that she is coming back. I don't at all. So, do what I want to read about her. At this point, I don't know, because she seems like a throwaway character the way they've treated her. Thrawn, I know, is a big deal. I know he had a major presence in the past in the books and whatnot. Bringing him into Rebels and bringing this book now brings him into current canon. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to believe that Disney has plans for him. Yeah,
and we talked about before, Thrawn and his race, the Chiss, are from what's known as wild space in the Star Wars universe. So almost kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy to Marvel, he could be sort of a link to this other area in the Star Wars universe that they can play off of or go down the path for 4 or 5 years in the future with stuff.
I think if they made some reference to him or if he showed up in one of the films, that would be sweet.
Yeah, and I think because of his timing and where his location is, I think it's very easy for them to play a movie with him that doesn't include the characters we know and love from his past or in the future. We don't know if his race lives to be 400 years old. So I think there is no sort of trapdoors or handcuffs with that character right now. So that's what I'm excited about with him. That basically covers off where we go with books and comics. I mean, like you said, 2017 was a good year. Lots of stuff from Marvel. Star Wars, of course, as always. Godzilla, King Kong, new franchises getting launched. Yeah, did we talk about the Mummy? Mummy was probably a big disappointment from this year. We don't need to mention much more of that. But yeah, it was a good year. Our next show is going to be the 2018 looking forward. Lots of great stuff already that we're excited about, and there's probably more stuff that we haven't even heard about yet that will be coming out. So any final thoughts on 2017, Michael?
Hey, like I said, every year seems to be a good geek year. This one was another strong one. I mean, it's going to be for the foreseeable future. You got Marvel kicking out films, 3 or 4
years
now?
Basically the movies that we are talking about are the biggest movies.
Right.
I mean, it's hard for us to even think of what is a non-geek or comic book superhero related movie that gained more money or had more marketing than any of the stuff we've talked about. I don't think there was one.
Fast and Furious is up there.
No comment.
I'm just saying, I'm not asking for any opinion on the movies, just that is a multi-billion-dollar franchise now, whether you like it or not, it is.
Yeah, and you're true. You're right. I mean, to be fair, that's one of the only things marketing-wise and box office-wise that really is competing with these sort of geek and comic book movies.
I mean, Marvel's kicking out, at least 3 films a year, and then you have at least 1 DC, so there's going to be 4 solid geek movies just from Disney every year. And that's not including anyone else. And
going forward, what may be a cliff note here in 2017 at the end, we don't know how it's going to play out 100% yet, but the Disney and Fox merger, we may look back at this in 4 or 5 years from now and say, like, wow, had that not have happened, we might not have gotten these great X-Men movies and these great Fantastic Four movies, and who knows where they're going to take that if it goes through.
Now, you said great Fantastic Four movies? Okay.
Well, we know we got to acknowledge too. One of the things that's holding back the Fantastic Four franchise right now is that the Kree Shi'ar war is their sort of Infinity War story.
That's true.
But they haven't been able to touch it because it's sort of Marvel owns half and Fox owns half, so they haven't been able to go down that road yet.
That's right, because the Shi'ar, well, they do appear in the Avengers, but in comics, but the Shi'ar are also very heavily tied to the X-Men as well. You're right.
Right. So that's been the reason why I think they can't go anywhere with that, and we've gotten stupid Cloud Galactus smog monster. Oh, so you know that Galactus is still sitting there in the back pocket somewhere. Guardians of the Galaxy tie-in, like that's just waiting to be told. But let's not get our hopes up yet for Fantastic Four.
So I think that wraps us up. I'm assuming we've missed at least a few things. So if you have complaints and want to say, hey, what about so-and-so? Or what about this film or comic or book? Feel free to let us know. Like I said, we have day jobs, so we hit as much geeky stuff as we can, but we can't hit everything. With that, I think we're going to wrap this up. Our next episode, as Alan said, is going to be looking forward to the geek things of 2018. A reminder, as always, you can always email us. We're at WNRDpodcast@gmail.com. That's WNRDpodcast@gmail. You can also find us on Twitter. Same handle there, WNRD Podcast. So it's twitter.com/WNRD Podcast. Most recent episodes can be found on SoundCloud. That's soundcloud.com/WNRD. And of course, as always, all of our episodes, for as long as we put them out and as YouTube lets them up there, are going to be on YouTube. Just do a search for WNRD Podcast. I think I've said it like 3 or 4 times there. WNRD Podcast. Search for that. You should find us.
One way or another.
Exactly. We are out there in many different ways. So with that, I guess I'll be seeing you.
Take it easy.